So, you're an artist, just like me, and you're a little bit frustrated because even though you're practicing every day, your art doesn't seem to be improving at all. It's probably because you're missing these simple but important steps that every beginner artist overlook every time they make illustrations. Well, in this video, we're going to talk about these 5 simple steps that help me transform my illustrations. 99% of beginner artists are unaware of these steps. So if you're here, you're in the right place. And trust me, step number 5 will surely change you as an artist. For a little context, this art I'm about to use for this video is my personal artwork from last year. It's a fun art illustration from my favorite anime series called One Piece. I made this illustration to show my appreciation for this one specific scene. And don't get me wrong, I actually love this illustration. But looking at it 1 year later, I've noticed some things I couldn't see back then. Right now, I'm ready to share the insights I've gained from 1 year of drawing. Anyways, enough of that. Let's get started. Did you ever experience zoning out? Sitting in your chair while staring at your monitor with a blank canvas for hours, hoping inspiration or an idea would rush into your brain cells and give you an aha moment? Well, I hate to break it to you, but it doesn't work like that. This first step I'm about to tell you could solve that problem. You probably heard the word thumbnail or thumbnailing before. And no, not those clickbait images you often see on YouTube. This is actually a step that pro artists in the industry use in their process. I used to ignore it before because I thought it was just a waste of time and made the process longer. But I was completely wrong. In fact, this step will make your process even faster. Because by doing thumbnails, you'll be able to have solid ideas early on. For example, since I already decided on a post based on this art I made, I didn't go overboard. I just made 3 thumbnails to try out different camera angles and compositions to see what fits my taste the most. I know 3 thumbnails aren't enough to fully explore ideas for an illustration. I just got lazy, I guess. But no worries, I'll show you a better example. Step 1. Define the purpose. Decide on the subject and goal of your illustration, which on this case is a person sitting. Step 2. Set the canvas. Create a small boxes that will serve as your canvas. Step 3. Draw basic shapes. In each box, quickly sketch the overall composition using rough shapes. Circles, rectangles, or any shape that you need. Just keep in mind to keep it simple and focus on layout. Step 4. Explore different composition. Try different perspective and arrangement in multiple boxes. Step 5. Refine a few favorites. Choose 2 to 3 of your favorite thumbnail sketches and add a bit more detail to get a clearer sense on which works the best. Step 7. Pick the best one. Select the thumbnail that has the strongest composition for your final illustration. You start adding thumbnails into your process, and don't be afraid to explore as many ideas as you can. The more you practice, the more you'll see your art improve. And trust me, it's going to make a huge difference. Creating art with complex form and super dynamic perspective can be stressful, especially for us beginners. Have you ever tried to copy one of your favorite artist's illustrations? You spent a lot of time copying it from top to bottom, every bit of detail and color, trying to achieve the same quality as your favorite artist. But in the end, you end up frustrated because your art turned out flat and boring. Unfortunately, what you've done is just a mere copying. You drew it as if you were a photocopying machine. You didn't consider what lies beneath those fancy lines and colors, and just went straight to the final product. So you're probably thinking, what did I miss? Well, imagine this. It's like a cake without layers. What you've copied is just the icing and decoration on top of that cake. What you need to know is how to make a good base for your cake, or in our case, a good structure for your drawings. That flat looks often happens because You're not breaking down complex form into simple shapes. Let me show you how I applied this in my illustration. First, I broke down Luffy's bodies into simple shapes. His head can be simplified as a circle, his ribcage and pelvis as boxes, and his arms and legs are circles and cylinders. Using this approach makes it much easier to apply perspective and get proportion right. If you jump straight to complex shapes, moving your figure around in 3D space becomes so much harder, and it's easy to get lost in all the details. To help you practice, I've created a simple example for you to follow. For example, let's use a chess piece. Begin by simplifying the largest parts. The top could be circle, followed by an oval shape, a triangle, and then another square for the base. You can try this with different kinds of objects. Practicing with simple shapes and using reference image helps you break down complex subjects into manageable parts. It could really improve your understanding of proportion and form. Speeds up your drawing process and builds a strong foundation for creating more accurate and dynamic illustrations. Now that you've got a solid grasp of your subject form, it's time to move on to the next method. This one could completely transform your illustrations. Step 3. Reference. Using references is super common for artists, whether you're working traditionally or digitally. It's honestly one of the most important things to know. A lot of us feel embarrassed about using references, thinking it's a form of cheating. I know, I used to feel that way, but then I realized that even the great masters relied on references regularly. Whether it was for creating hyper-realistic works like Rembrandt or more stylized pieces like Van Gogh, references were essential to their process. Gathering references is crucial for artists because it gives you a solid foundation of visual information. It helps you achieve greater accuracy, creativity, and realism in your illustrations. I'm not going to dive too deep into this topic right now. I might save that for a separate video later. But back to my illustration, it's pretty clear I didn't use any references when I made it. Honestly, I don't even know what I was thinking. Maybe I was too eager to post it before the hype died down. Or I was just overconfident in my skills. Either way, one thing's for sure, it didn't turn out great. To fix this, I started by gathering the references I needed. I usually break them into two types. First up, I focus on the specific detail like poses, clothings, and other elements to nail the accuracy. For this, I usually turn Google Images and Pinterest. But when I can't find a pose I like, I use this awesome free website called PoseMy. You can create custom poses that fit your illustration perfectly. It's like one of those artist figurines you can buy online, but way better because it's free and super convenient. Plus, you won't lose any of its body part every time. I'll drop the link into the description below. The second type of reference I gather is for inspiration. I look for different illustrations from other artists that can spark ideas when I'm feeling stuck or completely unaware of what to do. This is what my reference sheet looked like. Just heads up, you don't have to follow it exactly. It's just my personal way of organizing references. Feel free to create your own in whatever style feels comfortable with you. Now that we have both the structure and references sorted out, we can dive into adding those details. With all the references we've gathered, detailing our character will be so much easier. At this point, we just need to focus on bringing all the elements together. And it's time to start considering this next step. One of the best ways to improve in art is to look at other people's work. Learning to observe can be truly helpful, especially when you are a beginner. By doing so, I've noticed something that professionals do that I don't. This results in my artwork looking weird or undesirable. Let's compare. Here's my art and here's an art made by pro artist named. Notice the difference? If you look closely, his art looks super clean and so pleasing to look at. It feels like it has some kind of charm in it. Here's mine. Well, I'm not gonna say anything other than it's horrible. So what separates the two? Well, the answer is simplicity. His lines look so simple and flowy, while mine, if you look closely at my drawing, there are a bunch of random lines throughout the illustration, especially on Luffy's clothes. I don't actually know what I'm doing here. I thought having so many lines could give the illusion of realistic folds on the clothes, but in the end, it just ruined my illustration. To fix this, we can use a method called CSI. It stands for C curve, S curve, and I for straight line. This technique not only cleans up your lines, but also gives your stroke more confident and polished look. Instead of relying on those small bumps and scratchy lines, the CSI method helps you group them into smoother, more intentional strokes, which is really elevate your art. I tried applying it in this illustration, and while it's not perfect, it's definitely an improvement. I still feel like it could get better, but I'm okay with it for now. Compared to my earlier work though, it's a big step up. To practice this, I like to do it as a warm-up. Before starting any illustration, it helps me condition my arms and give me a chance to get comfortable using CSI. Start every drawing session with basic warm-up exercises. For straight lines, draw long confident lines across the page. Try doing them at different angles. Curve lines, draw C-shaped and S-shaped curves. Focus on fluidity. Other methods are ghosting method, connect the dots, and shape breakdown. And now for the last tip. One of the most important things to learn as a beginner artist is to think a lot of us beginners are just scared to fail. We don't want to admit we're still at the beginner stage. So we end up making the same mistakes over and over. The thing is, we get so confused on trying to create the perfect final piece. But honestly, the real progress comes from just showing up, practicing consistently, making mistakes, and learning from them. Every sketch, even the horrible one, is helping you get better. The more you create, the more you'll see your skills and style evolve. It's all about patience, persistence, and not being afraid to mess up. Even starting this YouTube channel, I hesitated for the longest time. I keep thinking, what if I'm not good enough? What if no one cares about my videos? And yeah, those fears almost held me back. But here's the truth. To get better, you've gotta be okay with not being great at first. That's just how it goes. This video might not even perform well, and that's perfectly fine. Growth is a step-by-step process, and part of that involves failing while learning from it. Every mistake teaches you something, and eventually, you look back and see just how far you've come.